Gary Alvarez is back. That was a long week. And I'm going to talk about 4 fearless Wisconsin Badger sports predictions. Are these going to be Nostradamus-esque things where your mind is going to be blown in a meme-like fashion? Probably not. But they are 4 sturdy positions on 4 Wisconsin programs that will hopefully make you think a little bit. And I'm excited to get right to it. Before we do, please like and subscribe. The YouTube algorithms have never been more cruel than they are right now to smaller accounts. So help a brother out here. Anyway, 4 fearless Wisconsin Badger sports predictions. And this is, I didn't mention at the top, but it's going to be spring. So the next several weeks is going to be the impact. Let's start with Greg Gart's men's basketball team. I'm going to say that the Badgers are going to end up a 10 seed in the NCAA tournament, but more importantly, end their Sweet 16 drought as an underdog. You heard me right. One of the overarching themes of Wisconsin sports the last several years has been Wisconsin hoops' inability to make things happen in March. I've talked about it many times. I've done my damnedest to try and hold my frustrations at bay and try and give reasons each time. But the reality is, it's just got to happen eventually, guys. There can't be excuses every single year. And what better time to do it than when people aren't really expecting it? The last time Wisconsin made a Sweet 16, they beat number 1 seed Villanova as an 8. Yeah, not a lot of people thought that was going to happen. And Nova won the NCAA tournament the very next year. But there's some things about this team that both terrify me and excite me. And let's be real here. Here is their schedule in the Big Ten for the rest of the season. At Indiana, at Illinois, Michigan State, at Ohio State, Iowa, at Oregon, at Washington, Maryland, and at Purdue. Let's be real here, folks. They're going to lose some games, okay? I'm going to set the over-under at 5 additional losses. That seems like a ton. That'd be a 4-5 finish. But what's running in the background here is so the very thing that's hurting Wisconsin right now in the net rankings and some of the other things is their strength of schedule. Not that it's terrible, but it isn't that impressive. Wisconsin's strength of schedule after that stretch is going to astronomically jump. So when Wisconsin finishes its Big Ten campaign with 10 or 11 wins, it's not going to be some let's roll a parade out down State Street kind of thing, but it will get them in the tournament. And I see them coming in as a 10 seed, could be lower, could be higher potentially, but a 10 seed, getting that 7-10 game, more importantly, avoiding that 1 seed the first weekend. And against the odds, I'm not going to say against all odds, but against the odds, get it done and get to that Sweet 16. All right. Let's flip to women's hockey real quick. Got some other great sports waiting for us here, like football and men's hockey. We're going to women's hockey here. My bold prediction here is Wisconsin women's hockey is going to lose again this season, which may not sound on the surface like a big prediction, but trust me, they have 2 losses all year. That's a big deal. But they're still going to win the NCAA title. Okay? That may also not seem like a big prediction, but it also is. To some extent. They don't win it every year, guys. This will be title number 9, which means that more often than not, they don't win the title. But the Badgers have Layla Edwards, Carolyn Harvey, Ava McNaughton, the talented goaltender, and Kristen Sims, their best offensive player, all over there at the Olympics in Italy right now. So as we saw last weekend when they dropped a overtime heartbreaker to the Gophers up in Minneapolis, this team is going to have to find its sea legs a little bit, at least for the next 3 weeks. And that starts at Ohio State, the number 2 team in the country. This upcoming doesn't start; it continues in Columbus, Ohio, this weekend against number 2 Buckeyes, who, by the way, are missing a number of their own players. But I see this team finding its sea legs because even without those 4 players, they're still arguably the most talented team in college hockey. And I think this is going to be a up and down finish to some extent. They're going to win almost all their games. They're going to lose a few of them, and they're going to raise that trophy in March yet again. All right. From women's hockey to men's hockey. And this has been a debacle. And I'm going to make a prediction here that I think is good news to most of you, but it's a little bit on the it's a little bit of a bold prediction where it wouldn't have seemed like it would have seemed crazy 3 weeks ago. But I'm going to say the slumping men's hockey team gets the ship steadied and still secures an NCAA tournament bid. This was the number 2 team in the country when the calendar turned to 2026. Being a bubble team was the last thing on their mind at that point. And then they went and lost 6 straight games, all in the Big Ten, getting swept by 3 teams: Michigan State, Penn State, and Minnesota. And if we're being honest, not in a very, very close, tightly fought manner. We went up to the Gophers, who were one of the worst teams in college hockey, and got pretty much manhandled this weekend. Okay, the Wisconsin power play unit looked atrocious. The goaltending was not much better. And I know they have some injuries and things along those lines, and I'm trying to be sympathetic, but this team is playing horrific hockey. They are as bad in the second half as they were good in the first half. But what I am leaning on and hoping is that the cream will rise to the top, in the sense of no team could have been as good as they were for almost 3 months early in the season and be as bad as they are in the second half. I think this team is going to find its sea legs. I don't think it's going to be gorgeous in the second half. I don't see them coming back and being a top 5 team again, but I do think they get enough done to still make the NCAA tournament. When you're in the tournament, you never know what can happen once you're there. But I have enough confidence in Hastings, Christian Fitzgerald, some of these guys to get right, and hopefully that will start at last place Notre Dame this weekend, which will be a series that can make what I'm saying now look utterly preposterous if they were to get swept again, because their season will be done. I'm telling you right there. That will be it. So big weekend coming in South Bend, Indiana for the Wisconsin Badger men's hockey team. But I do think they make it. And finally, I always save, I won't say the best for last, but football for last. I think Wisconsin football, to kind of back up a little bit, I'm not sure if everyone knows this. There used to be a situation as recently as last season where there was a transfer portal component to the spring. We saw it when Tanner Koziel hopped on a train and headed down to Southwest because he didn't like hitting in practice. And Wisconsin went ahead and grabbed a different tight end, as well as a left tackle in Heinzen after an injury. That doesn't exist anymore. There is no transfer portal in spring football this year. These are the dudes you got, and you got to roll with them. So I think that, coupled with the fact that Wisconsin has an unprecedented number of new faces in that room, over 43 new players in that locker room that were not there at the end of last season between transfer portal guys and 2026 recruits. It's going to be like your dorm when you get in as a freshman. Everyone has name tags on. You guys are doing trust falls and things like that. It's going to be a wild camp. But the prediction here is that, and this is probably the least wild prediction of all the ones I've made on the show, is that there are going to be guys in this particular camp, and more of them, that break out that we weren't necessarily expecting. Not guys that you look at it and say they broke out. There was no way in hell this was ever going to happen. But guys you aren't necessarily, like Mason Reiger, for example, last season. There was nothing about what Mason Reiger did in the 2026 season that was shocking to me. Every prognosticator worth their salt knew he was really good, and the only question was, could he stay healthy? Okay, so Reiger earned himself probably a first 3 or 4 round NFL draft slot and dominated. I'm not talking about that kind of player. I'm talking about a guy who has shown some upside or had 4 stars as a recruit. Maybe they got hurt. Maybe they were in a crowded room at their previous destination. Maybe they were a little bit under the radar in recruiting. But these are guys that I see could come in and really surprise people and carve a meaningful place out in the Wisconsin Badger 2026 roster, and maybe even do a lot more than that. And I got a ton of them. I'm going to name a few names here. These are not necessarily my only breakout guys, but just the kind of guys you can see having exactly what I'm talking about to create this wild spring. Wide receiver Zion Kearney, a transfer from Oklahoma. Cornerback Bryce West, a cornerback from the Ohio State University. I did it, guys. Sorry. Edge Nicholas Clayton, who's going to be a sophomore. Came in from Florida, had offers all over the place. Real fine athlete who just has to refine his game a little bit to be that reliable edge guy. And here's what I'll just throw out there. Again, this is sort of a coin flip too, but Liam Danitz, he's the D3 player from Michigan, who is a absolute lightning fast edge guy who, and others have said this, like Lockdown Badgers, who could come in and lead the team in sacks or never leave the bench. Well, I feel like he's a good bet for being the kind of person who can come in and make things wild, who can make things crazy, who can do things that people, the day he committed, people were excited about him, and then they kind of forgot that he's there. He could be the kind of player that electrifies that roster in the spring. But I think football is going to have the wildest spring they've ever had. That's probably a step further than I just went a second ago, but this is going to be a fun, really interesting, hard-hitting, highly competitive spring for Luke Fickell's Badgers. And guessing that too deep as we play Notre Dame up in Green Bay, good luck, guys. That too deep is going to have more surprises than a really good horror film. I'm not sure I can name a good one recently, but that Scream wasn't that good. But anyway, I'd love to hear in the comments if you think I'm nailing these, if you think I'm way off. I don't think I'm way off. Again, I'm not going out on the craziest limb here with some of these predictions, but I do think there's going to be some good, cool stuff going on. So to summarize, I think that men's basketball is going to make the Sweet 16 as a 10 seed. Women's hockey is going to lose at least one more game, but still come up with NCAA title number 9. The absolute slumping men's hockey team, who is in a whirl of hurt right now, somehow steadies the ship and sneaks into the NCAA tournament. And football is going to have the wildest spring that we have had in a long damn time. Anyway, talk to you soon. I'm going to have my top 10 favorite transfer portal guys on defense coming out later this week. Scary Alvarez is out.